Hello and welcome back to the channel where we are building a video game from scratch using Love2d and Lua. So yesterday we worked on getting our dialogue system updated in a different way. So we didn't change the functionality of things, but we did, I guess we did fix one thing, right? In the opening cinematic here, when we go to the second scene in the castle here, we are loading up a dialogue box, which is correct. He walks up and says something, right? Now there's the good news is if we hit P, it advances correctly. The bad news is I don't get why the dialogue box is rendering in the wrong spot here. See how like this blinking arrow should be in the bottom right of this gray thing, but also the gray thing is overlapping the HUD, which it should not be. So we have to figure that out. But then the more pressing issue is that we broke all the dialogue box options for our treasure chests, as well as any of our other signposts or NPCs. So we need to go implement the new version for all the old stuff, so that moving forward we can do this easier new version without everything breaking. So we will be updating our old stuff to work with the new stuff we did just yesterday, and then we'll see if we can fix this rendering issue on the on this cinematic, because it should render normal, and I don't know why that's the case. I did a little bit of digging and I could not find anything. So we're going to have to dig and see if we can find it. So I think what we want to do... is just take a look at the things we changed, right? So right now we have this active dialogue ID, and that's the dialogue box we're actually rendering. And the active dialogue ID field is both part of the scene as well as part of the actual dialogue box, I believe. Yeah. Oh, it's part of the scene. We just reference it in the dialogue box. Okay. So yeah, it's part of the scene. Okay. So I think what we want to do here is just take a look in our declarations where we changed this. So see this 001? That's what we essentially changed. Now, I don't think these X and Y values would shift where it's rendering. I don't think that's the issue where it's rendering, but we need to add this 001 after the type of dialog box, because if we look at the parameters here, it's an XY, a text, an option, an NPC, an index. So the index that we give it there is like a hard-coded index that lives in the dialog box table that's global to our scene, and if we know opening cinematic needs to trigger, maybe the opening cinematic has 3 signposts and a scene where they talk, so like the signpost would be dialog box 1 and 2, but the third one would be the special one that gets triggered in the cinematic or whatever, and we'd be able to know which index is which dialog box, which right now we don't have a clear-cut way of doing that. We can table.insert the dialog box into the global table, but then we have to kind of keep track. Oh, this inserted it, so this one's 1, this one inserted it, so it's 2. But this way we kind of explicitly say, go put this in index 2 or 3 or whatever. Jimmy, I can't tell what, I think Jimmy's gonna jump. Here, I'll fix Jimmy Cam real quick. So essentially the only things we kind of changed was we no longer have this kind of second dialog box collided table, which we were inserting the only active dialog box in there. Now we're saying, hey, there's this thing called active dialog box ID. So if we trigger, I want active dialog box ID 3, we can go to the third dialog box, and that becomes the one that's rendering. So that gives us just more control over kind of triggering which ones, and a little more straightforward. We just have to manually explicit which index each dialog box gets. Because right now, our signposts are broken. Anyone that doesn't have this explicit index, it'll break. So we have to kind of go through all of our dialog box instantiations and add this index. So it looks like there's 17. So it's after idle. Idle's the option, text, option, NPC, which is nil, and then index, which is 1. So there's the option NPC, there is the NPC, so then we just need 1. Now, we can't just put 1, you know, it depends on the scene. So, you know what, this is kind of weird. We can default 1 being the idle if it's in screen. And then we just have to remember if the scene has an idle, we can't insert 1, we have to use 2 there. Jimmy's home. Jimmy looks happy. Okay. Okay, so yeah, let's say idles are defaulted to index 1, and then we'll just keep it track, you know. Thinking about this, like, we have to be really on it with our level design, because if we just like randomly insert idles or signposts, we have to make sure that all this stuff matches. So I'm sure that can get a little weird. But let's just do it one by one here. That's a 1. 7, 2, 4. See, we insert a dialog box option here on a 7, 2, 7, 4. So why is it that we insert the dialog box into the map here if the idle's in our above ground tile ID? Because we're kind of doing it here manually. 7, 2, 7, 4. I'm going to take this out and see. I don't think we really need this. See right here, I leave a comment say to do why no work. I don't think we need this. Oh, okay. This is where we try to dynamically insert it. This was not working, so it makes sense. I mean, it was in here, but it was not working, so we couldn't get that to work. Okay, it should have been commented out because it wasn't working, but that gives me better feelings about this. Okay. So in map 7.2, that's our main one, meditation idle, we need to manually say here, there's no NPC, and idle is going to get the first index. Same with the idle on 7.4, no NPC, index of 1. We keep going down, this 211. So let's see here, we've got We've got a 7-2 and a 7-4 idle. So 7-2, 7-4 idle, that's looking right. So for the NPC for the 211, that looks like our villager index. Okay, so this is the one in our inn. We'll just give them an index of 1. We'll say this one is a nil 1 because no NPC and it's in 7-1. This one should be a nil 1. This one should be 7-3. We have it in 7-2 and 7-4, not in 7-3. So this one's nil and 1 also. Okay, 7-4. This is the one that we have two things. We have a meditation idol, so this would be nil and 2. But the idol that we put in on 7-4 is already 1, right? Yep, we insert on the first one. Okay. Okay, 8-3, that is nil and 1. Yeah, now thinking about it, I'm thinking we don't... Yeah, I'm thinking we shouldn't have to do this, like we need to be able to know which dialogue ID we're talking about, because that's how we're rendering, you know, we're triggering. If we collide with a dialog box object, we're saying, okay, well, the active dialog box ID is now whatever that ID is. So maybe what we can do, because I don't like the idea of hard coding in these values and then not knowing, having to keep track of like, oh, this is only the second signpost, so we need to make sure it's 2 and not 1 or whatever, all that stuff. I think the dialog box should take care of this. But I think that means that, you know, we have to adaptively change that number based on how many dialog boxes are already in there. So I think what we can do is when we assign this ID, we can pull it from... Yeah, and you know what? Yeah, I think this will work. Let's go to our dialog box ID, our dialog box class. Now, instead of pulling it from the index here, we need to pull it. See, and this is tough. Okay. Oh. It's tough because we don't have a reference to the scene view that we're currently in, or that the scene is, that the dialog box is rendering. So we could, yeah, like we'd have to either pass in a reference to the scene view we're inserting them into, or do it this way where we code the index, which I'm not so happy about either option. Jimmy keeps moving. I'm not going to be able to catch her. Got her foot there. Okay, so... yeah, the issue is we have to kind of manually say what dialog ID index it is. And it's not dialog ID. I thought it was active dialog ID for the scene, not the dialog box. Okay. Jeez. Okay. We could keep it this way, and I guess the move is we should really keep them all in the same spot. So like all the 7 2s are all in the same spot like they are here, so we can clearly see that. Hold on a sec. For the dialog box, we have text option NPC index, so this nil is incorrect. That was the one that was working though. Let me see if any of them are working now that we changed that. Oh god. Yeah, it's not nil. This is where it messed up. This is driving me crazy. Okay, the index or the indenting on here is wild. Okay, is that right? Okay. This is bugging the crap out of me. There we go. Shit. How do we miss that? How do we accidentally delete a comma in there? Okay. That one's working. That one's working. See, that one thinks it's a meditate. The signpost on 7.2 thinks it's a meditate, and so does this one. we have a signpost option, not a meditate option for the idle there. So we probably aren't assigning the active dialogue ID correctly here. So let's see in our scene where we do that. And we have a dialogue update, right? Dialogue update. See how we're snagging this? We're updating only the active dialogue ID. So where do we set this active dialogue ID? We set it upon an interaction with the dialog box. That's here in our play state. Okay, see, so here if we interact, that's for our touches. This is the one here. So yeah, it looks like, oh, see, look, we're pulling the active dialogue ID and we're hard coding it as 1 when it should be the dialogue boxes, which is going to be a value. We need to pull it from that dialogue ID. Same with here. Okay, let's see if we've got other than meditate. No, it's still meditate. Active ID 1. Active ID 1. Active ID 1. Always. Should be the dialogue ID. Do we initialize this in our dialog box as a value? Index or 1. So if we put nil there, does it change it to nil instead of 1? If so, we're not passing in the parameters correctly. Yo, what up, Squinch? How's it going? Okay, dialog ID, dialog ID. Okay, so yeah, when we collide with the dialog box, and you know what? Do we have them all as 1 in the declarations? So 7.2. Oh, we don't even add them here. I'm a dummy, man. Okay, so let's say, where is the 7.2 idle that we put in there though? 7.2 idle. Okay, we give the idle 1. Okay, so if any scene has an idle in it, the idle is index 1 by default. And then we can add the correct index here, and then now we should be able to see the correct active ID depending on which dialog box we're looking at, because there's actually 5 in this scene here. There's actually 5 because there's the idle, there's a flower bed, Ice Mountain Tavern signpost, as well as a mage dialog box. So there's 5 dialog boxes in that one scene. Let's just test it real quick. That one works. This is active ID 4, which is rendering the correct one. This is active ID 5, which is rendering the correct one. This is rendering meditate, which is active ID 1, which is correct. This one is active ID 2, which is flower bed, which is correct. And Ice Mountain, which is active ID 3, which is correct. Okay. Okay. So that looks right. Now we need to rehaul it. We need to do a couple of things. We need to rehaul and make sure our dialog box has an option of whether or not to be paused. And to actually pause it when we're updating if it is paused. Or not if it's not. So that's going to be tough. But then we also need to pull out we need to pull out our collision detection for a dialog box for a or a dialog box update out of the treasure chest object and just put it in the scene. But then how do we trigger it? Well, we would trigger we would have a dialog ID of whatever, you know, maybe the treasure chest. I don't know. Because what we have to do is we have to pair a dialog ID with the correct text that goes inside the treasure chest. So once you open the treasure chest, it'll say, oh, I know that this is supposed to be dialog ID of 2 because there's like maybe a signpost in the dungeon there. I don't know. Treasure chests, I feel like, are kind of be like idols, but in the underground, in the sense that we default them to index 1 for the dialog ID. So if there's a treasure chest, it's index 1. Everything else stacks on top. I think that makes sense. So, should we get pausing working first? Probably. Okay. So let's take a look. We would need to add a pausing parameter to our dialog box, because basically all that's happening is if there is a dialog box that we choose to trigger, it just updates and renders the dialog box. So we can either only do the update if yo Sora, coding definitely is hard, but it is possible, you know. Like I went from knowing nothing about code 4 years ago to building this game. So yeah, I'm fairly new to it still. So I don't think it's too late. I don't think it's too hard if it's something you really want to do. And if you're serious about it or curious about it, I would say check out this video series on YouTube called Games 50 from Harvard. And they basically just walk you through how to build Pong in this game engine and scripting language that I'm currently using here. And if you watch that and you think that's interesting, then you can absolutely do game dev, because that's all I did. So I would say if you're curious about it, check out that video and just watch it, follow along, see if you're interested, see if it piques your curiosity. And if it does, this is definitely something you can do. It is hard, but it is super fun. So I recommend trying it. It is a whole lot of practice. Yeah. And that's kind of why I do it too, where it's like, I kind of want to show people that I don't know what the hell I'm doing 99% of the time. So I'm kind of just like talking through what I think might work. Yeah, here, I'll get you the link here. It's called Games 50 from Harvard X. So there's a whole playlist, but the Games 50, yeah, it's called the CS50's.
Hi, my name is Colton Ogden, and I am the course in
CS50 Intro to Game Development. So here, I'll send you the link to the first episode. Yeah, so I would say start here. And if you're into this and you're curious more, like watch, dude, I watched this like maybe 4 or 5 times and just try to absorb it. And then it started making a lot of sense to me, right? Because it's all game dev is really just being super, super explicit in what you want it to do. So Pong is like the perfect game to start learning how that works. So I think that was a great first episode. So I would say watch that and check it out. And you know, it's not like, okay, yeah, dude, if you've used Blender and Unity, Love2d is like 2 out of 10 complex compared to those two. So if you were even able to do a donut in Blender or a scene in Unity, you can easily do the stuff I'm doing here. And that's from my experience in both Blender and Unity too. I think it's totally doable. Yeah, hey, yeah, thanks for stopping by, Sora. I know you're from Salto stream, right? Yeah, Lua is like the most simple, friendliest language if you're not a coder and you're wanting to start coding. I think it's so friendly. So I think it's very, very easy to pick up compared to every other language. It's super easy. So yeah, we're trying to prevent the game from updating if our dialog box is working, right? So, and by working I mean like on. So like we have these flowers here that animate, and right now if we hit interact with the dialog box, we can still see the flowers moving, which means the game is not paused. That means if we're being attacked or something and we go to read here, it'll hit us. And the fact that we're able to walk around, we shouldn't be able to walk around if we're still reading the sign. It should limit our movement until we're out. So previously we did that just by pausing the game, and pausing is just a global function that just stops updating our scene if the paused boolean is true. So I'm kind of thinking it makes it a little more difficult if we're trying to keep the scene updating, as in the animatable table, so that we can still see the flowers animating, and prevent our player from walking, because then we need to have another special logic to say, okay, well, we're not paused because we're updating the animatables, but we need to limit our character's input. So I don't know. I'm a little tempted to just say, if we're in a dialog box, let's just make the game paused so we don't update the scene. And then once we get that back, because that's how it was working, once we get that back, if there's a scene in particular that I'm really like, you know what, I really would like if animatables can still update, then we can pull our animatable update logic outside of the paused state so that they're just always updating. So I think that's probably the easiest way to do it, because thinking about adding another boolean for the character movement is tough, because we're doing touch detection for the iPhone as well as keyboard detection for the desktop version. So I'm kind of thinking we just make it paused in a dialog box, and then resume it, unpause it once we're done advancing through the dialog box. So we can do that. It's a little tricky because we can't just put it in the init, because we actually init the dialogue way before, at the beginning of the game, before we even know what scene we're in. We initialize. That freaked me out, man. Hey, Frizzigriswald. Is that it? Frizzgriswald. Yo, thank you for the follow. That freaked me out. So if we go into our dialog box class, we should be able to, there's two ways of doing this. Like, we can say, I think what we should do is say that whenever we trigger a dialog box update, we set the game to pause. Yeah, it definitely did wake me up there. That was a shot of espresso right there. And then when we advance the page, we have this line here where we say, if current page is equal to page length and we've pressed a button, that means we're on the last page of dialogue, and that means we become unpaused. So we already have that from last time we implemented it. So all we should have to do is become paused once we interact with a dialog box. So we have this function called dialogue collides. And this is what our player is checking against the dialog box object, like a signpost or an NPC that you can talk to. We're checking for collision here. So let's just, and look, we had it from last time. Let's just trigger paused right here. And this is where I get the horrible habit of leaving my old comments in here, is because when I go to switch things around, I delete the stuff a lot of the time, and then I don't remember what I did or what was the old way we did it to kind of give me a frame of reference. So that's where I get that bad habit from. But in this case, it came easy, and it's like, oh look, pause gets true here. So now once we hit this, once we collide with this, the flowers should stop moving, and it does. Oh, but we're not. Oh shit. We ceased to update. We ceased to update our dialog box object. This is why we had to turn it off. So our dialog box is in the scene. Yeah, this is another reason why we had pulled out the dialog boxes into a dialog box collided table, because then we can have it exist outside of the scene, and we had the logic in the play state, not in the scene. So it's, we're triggering it correctly here in the play state, but we aren't updating a dialog box if the game is paused. So in our scene, we just need to pull out our dialog update out of the paused condition, and then it should work. Because if we look at our update in our scene, one of the very first things we do here is, we say if we're not paused. Actually, do we have a reference to paused here? We do not. Okay, so where are we doing it? Right here. Oh, lordy. Okay. And this is in our play state. So since our dialog box exists in our scene, we have access to our global scene with the scene view variable here. So we should be able to pull our dialog box update out of the scene update logic, pull it into the play state, and modify the same values. Like here, let's just do it. Here it's in. Okay, so right here, we're doing this. I'm going to say that this right here is update dialog box. So in our scene, we do the dialog update right here, and we're cycling through the map row that we're currently in the scene. So instead of no, this is a little different. Okay, so what we have to do is pretty simple still. So if we take out the update from our scene and plop it into our play state, we need to say we have this self dialog ID, which we have a self dialog ID, right? Oh, active dialog ID. Okay, the treasure chest isn't helpful. We have this. Yeah, so we have this. We're doing this twice, which is kind of weird, but our play state needs to know what's the index of a dialog ID we need to render, and also our scene needs to know that very same thing too. So that's why we kind of pull it twice like that. But we are assigning the correct active dialog ID to the play state. So the move here is, if our play state's active dialog ID does not equal nil, meaning there is a dialog box that should be triggered. Which, and now that I'm thinking about it, do do we reassign this to nil if we advance through the end of a dialog box? We aren't setting... Yeah, we would need a way to tell not only our scene. Well, I'm thinking too, now that the index is pulled out of the scene logic, we probably don't need it in the scene. We just need the play state to know what is the index of the dialog box we need to update, which we're doing. Okay, so let's just make sure in our dialog box we're not using this active dialog box ID anywhere else. Oh, here's where we nil it. Okay, we do nil it. Now here we nil it in the scene. We need to nil it in our play state, which is really tricky because we don't have an object. Shoot, I don't know how to do this. What we can do is we can set from the play state, we nil it here, and then in the play state, we can nil it by just saying, where would we do it though? If we're not paused. See, and I don't like this. I don't like this. We could do it like this, where we say we're gonna take our active dialog ID and we're gonna assign it the value of the dialog ID from our scene, which if it's nil, it'll be nil, assigned nil. If it's an active dialog box of 1, 2, or 3, that'll be in our scene. So that way we're pulling the nillified value from our dialog update into our play state. So this has been a really tricky thing because the play state is a state machine and I haven't figured out how to dig down into the variables of the play state. I can only really dig, I mean, we can try it. We can try it. If this works, we can see if we can. But this is essentially doing the same thing we're trying to do, which is just get the right nil value. I'm more so interested in doing this out of curiosity. Can we dig down into the play state and pull values? Pull fields. Okay. So now in our play state, we're updating the map. Now, the map here is not a self-map row that is referencing the scene. So we need this, a different value, and it's going to be the current scene's map. Oops. Current scene's current, yeah, the scene view's current map row and column here. We'll see. If it works, Sora, then it's magic. That'll be if it's magic. So now since we pulled out the update into the play state, now when our game is paused, we're no longer updating the scene view, which is stuff like our character walking around. It won't be updating that. The animatables, like the flowers animating, it won't update that if we're paused. And remember, we trigger the pause if we click on the thing. But we're also saying, okay, well, if the dialog ID from our scene view is a valid number and not nil, then let's go ahead and update the dialog box that is in there outside of the paused condition. So I'm hoping that this will update the text, but also pause the flowers and limit our player's movement. Look at that. Yo, it worked. Okay, Sora, it is like magic. When it works, it's like magic. When it doesn't work, it's like last night, where we did 3 hours of debugging for a 1-line code change. Okay, so this is nice. This is nice. You know, the thing I'm not so hot about is this. You know, I don't like the idea that we have to, every single frame 60 times a second, assign the active dialogue ID into our play state. I don't like that idea. What we really should do is anytime that value changes, just update it in the play state. So I am curious if we can dig down into the play state and pull out different fields of values so that we can do this a little smarter. Because I don't like the idea of doing this 60 times a second. It works because it's such a small game, but it should be able to be a little more efficient there. We'll see. That's more of a curiosity thing than a necessity thing. But let's test. Our meditate option is still working for a shrine. This is pausing as well as properly getting us out of the dialogue system. We need to check a multi-page one. This one is tavern and dungeon. The multi-page is working too. And even NPCs, like see the mage here is walking, but if we pause it, the mage doesn't update, so he can't walk into us while we're reading and push our body, because their collision is with us, so he just like pushed our body there. Meditate is working here too. Flower bed's working, and there's just like a couple of other signs that we just need to make sure we update to our new system, and they all seem to be working. Okay, cool. So yeah, the one thing I'm thinking of is it would be nice if while we're reading a sign like this, we still see the water wave and we still see the flowers bloom and stuff. So I'm kind of thinking that we can take out our animatables update. We'd have to, because there's two parts to this, right? It's like we need to be constantly updating them so they animate, but we need to also be constantly rendering them so we see the animated frame they're on. We can't just pull out the update from the pause condition and just say, regardless of pause or regardless of trying to think of how we can do that. We would have to track down where the animatables are being rendered. So let's see if we can find our animatables, update and render, and see if it makes any sense to us. So right now we have a global table of animatables. So every scene we're looking at has a table of animatables. And animatables is stuff like a flower or ocean water waving or any sprite, any tile that is animating. And we give it the first frame of the animatable. We give it a range to animate and cycle through the frames, and then it'll loop through. Like lava is another animatable. Okay. We have this insert animation function, which, what the heck are we doing here? Okay, so the insert animation function is just putting the updated animation tile ID into the tile that's being rendered. So our game is really rendering tile by tile, layer by layer. And so the animation, it'll go from frame 1024 to 1025, 1026, loop back 1024, 1025. And this insert anim is taking whatever and we call it anim, and it's this parameter anim here. So whenever we do this, insert anim is probably at least where we're updating that animation. And it looks like we're doing it, should be called, here, insert animations. Okay, it's in our map. Okay, so our map is doing this insert animations update. Now, our map, when we run update, is updating all the animatables, tile IDs, and then it's cycling through the current animatables table. And why are we doing this? Why do we say if our map row is 8, do nothing? I think we can just get rid of that. That's just confusing me. But we're essentially just doing what this line of code is doing is saying go to the current map we're in, go into the animatables table, and for every animatable that's in there, go ahead and run it as a function. So this animatables table is inserted with this function, and this function just actually literally puts the value of the number that's in that table and puts it into the .id, which is what's actually being rendered. So when do we it's a little tricky to me because it's like whatever's in the animatables has to be this global animatable. Yeah, it has to be, because otherwise this updating wouldn't make any sense. So let's see where we actually insert the insert anim function, because that's kind of an interesting way to do it. Yeah. It's kind of weird because what we're doing is we're in the animatables table. What we're doing is we're storing a function itself, and the function knows which row and column we're supposed to put in an animatable, and it's looking for a frame of an animatable to put in there. And we store it as a water.frame for the insert anim. Now, by the time we actually see what that frame is, it could be a different number because we're updating these global animatables over time. So the all caps is the convention of the global animatable, and the dot frame is are we on frame 1, 2, 3, or 4? And then our animatable knows if it's frame 1, it's tile 1024 or whatever it is, and it knows which one to render based on the frame number. And the frame number changes over time because we're updating it over time. So it's a little weird. It's a little weird to see this because we're trying to figure out how to animate these things regardless of being paused or not. And it's in the map, and the map is in our scene. So we kind of need to do something special. I'm trying to think this through. Because if we look at our map and we look at when we're updating the animatables, really? I know we just saw this. We just saw this in our map. Where's our update? Okay, so we have this insert animations. Yeah, this is a lot. This is weird. You know, it's weird because we named our class insert animation, but we have a table called insert animations with an S, and that's part of our map. So when we do this insert animations, we're updating it in the map. Okay, so I have a feeling that this is the one we want to move from the map into the global state, but it's a little trickier than that because it's abstracted one away. It's this insert animation from the map's self row, self column. So, you know, it's like we got to follow like the little cookie trail of everything back to its inception in order to see both how we're initializing it, how we're updating it, how we're rendering it, what's locality of scope to any of these variables or classes. So it's a little tricky. But the self row, self column is just the map's row and column in the global overworld. So it doesn't have to do with tiles, it has to do with the map scene itself. Now, we distinguish map and scene from one another because a map is what you're currently looking at, and the scene is what you're currently looking at too. But the only difference is the scene is a combination of both the current map and the next map when we do a scene transition. So that's just how I worded it. Like scene is like, oh, it's both of these things, and we need to be able to see both of these maps. But what we're currently looking at is the scene view. There's no next map if we're not in a scene transition. But what we're looking at is the map, and the scene is rendering the map. But the scene will also render a second map if we're transitioning. So that's the difference between how we describe that. So this class object, this insert animation class object, it just takes in a self row and self call. So we're trying to dig and see what we need. So if our play state had this animation, because what's kind of interesting is we're going to be updating this insert animation now in the play state, not in the scene. And all that's doing is updating these animatables, which we need updated outside of pause state, which makes sense to pull out in the play state. And then we only really update the dot animatables. Gosh, yeah, and this is a little weird. This is the magic right here. These two say that we're invoking the function that's in this table of animatables. So we're only invoking the function for the map that we're currently in. This self map row column, that's this self map row column, that's these two parameters of our insert animation. So when we do our insert animation, and I'm going to do this hear me out. I just put Salto there because I need to come back to that, and I'll remember Salto. I have notes for other things, but basically what I'm doing is commenting this out. And we need to have this animations table into our play state, not into our map, because our map is bound by being updated by being paused. So we're going to decouple the animation updating from the pause state by pulling it into the play state. And we'll do it here, but we'll say, yeah, we'll do it. If we're not paused, we're going to update the scene view, but we also need to give us, oh shit, this is tough because we have to, man, I think this could add a lot of trouble, because our map and our animations scroll, well, no, okay, because I'm thinking we insert this animation in a map, which there's a ton of maps in our game. So if we have just one in our play state, we need a way to trigger, anytime we do a scene transition, anytime we finish the scene transition and assign the next map into the current map, we need to say also, let's change our play state's animation table to have the reference to the map that we're currently in, so we can update only the animatables of the map that we're currently in. So that's a little tricky. Either that, or I guess what we can do, see, this is strange. Insert animation is a class that needs to be, oh man, the more I think about it, the more I think it's really lazy to just do the easy thing I'm thinking of trying right now, which is to just assign the insert animation into the play state based on the scene's current map, which we totally could do. I really want to see if we can dig down into the play state field, and if we can dig down into a specific field, then we can manually assign a new class instantiation into that table anytime we finish a scene transition. That way we only do it when it's necessary and not 60 times a second like I'm proposing in my lazy way. So let's do this. Let's dig down and try to find this field. So our play state here has an init, and we're gonna say that this is a field called test value, and it is hello there. It's a string. So if we can get this hello there out from our scene view, then we know we can dig down into our global play state and pull things out, and then we can do things a little smarter. So we have this test value called hello there. Now we have a global state machine, and it knows what current state machine we're in, but I don't know if we're able to pull out these values. So let's see if we can do this, because in the past we've done a lazy thing of like saying we just like do it in the init or something, and we don't have we make it global, and we just change it when we change play states, which is like a hacky way of getting those values out. It's just not real what we're trying to do. So let's see. If we go to our scene, what we're trying to do is first we'll say, we're already doing this active ID. This is all working. So we can say that this is going to be the table of whatever we try to pull. So let's try to pull the field of test value from our play state. So we have to inspect the table, the global state machine. So our global state machine dot current, I believe, is the way to get the active state machine. That didn't work. Okay, map 96, it didn't. Oh, we turned it off. We have to go back to our map.lua. Let's go back to our map. Yeah, we need this on real quick. Okay. Okay, look at this. Yeah, we're pulling. Oh my gosh, I think we can actually do this. Because, yeah, we're pulling the state machine, and we have a bunch of these things like game over, Manus, Manus Drain, Manus Max, all of that stuff. So if we look in our play state where those are, I'm hoping those aren't just local. I'm hoping it's, if we look at Manus and Manus Max, oh, it is all this stuff. So we should have a test value. So if we can dig into the test value there, we're in business. So let's try to index. What the heck just happened there, man? Okay, so the current state machine test value. That's, if this says hello there, we might be in business here. Yo, what up, Gavard? Is that how you say it? Gavard, what's up? Hey, welcome in. So yeah, we're trying to trigger, see our pretty little flower animations. We're trying to make sure that they animate even if we're in a dialog box like this here. So we're able to pull a value from our state machine using this syntax here. So we should have a way. I'm just going to delete that because it's pretty simple. It's global state machine current, and then we can pull out the variable. So right here we have our animations being inserted into the map, but our map is restrained by the pause state. It doesn't update if we're paused. So we need to pull out our animation updates outside of the scene and of the map and scene logic. So we're trying to pull it into the play state here, and we're putting it for right now, where we do this dialog update. Okay, so we have the dialog update. So yeah, we have this right here. Okay, so this is what we want to do. So we want to have I think we can have a dot animatables in our play state. I don't think we have that here. Yes, we don't. Okay, so in our play state init here, we're gonna add, there is a dot animatables table. We assign it to an empty table, but it's a little tough to think because we have to, we can't just assign it on a finished scene transition, because when we instantiate the map, that's not a scene transition, but it needs to have an animatable for whatever the current map is. So because ideally this is what we do. It's just that it's not self.row. We need to give it access to the scene's current map row and column. So we say that this is the scene's current map row and column. And then we, right now this would be updating, this would be inserting a class into the .animatables table 60 times a second, regardless if we're paused or not. And we aren't updating this .animatables over time, so it's not actually invoking that function that actually animates the tiles. So in our map, I believe it is, we're doing this insert animation update. So if we look for insert animations, we're doing this update. So we need to snag this and also update this in our other play state. So right here, we're going to say, okay, let's make sure that our .animatables table is using the row and column from our scene view, and then go ahead and update them. And then we technically still need to render them too, because if our scene view is being paused, then the values at which they're drawing the tile IDs is also being paused. It'll just be, it's like, well, we don't render anything new because, well, let's try it. Let's see if we get animated tiles. Oops. Yeah, it's not update insert animations, it's this animatables. Okay, well, our animatables are updating even though we took them out of the scene, so that's good. Oh my god, look at that. So yeah, our dialogue. So look, our player can't walk. We're still seeing our animated tiles, and we have our dialogue working. So I feel like, wow, it's really smooth. Yeah, they don't miss a beat. Okay, so this is the lazy way I was talking about, right? So it's nice that, look at our water still animating when we're reading, but things like our NPC that are walking back here, we'll catch him when he's walking and see how he doesn't update, because he's stopped, so he can't exert his hitboxes on you. You can't get attacked by enemies because the scene's not updating, but the animatables are, which looks pretty. Because it should be like this, where if we're reading the thing, it should still look, we don't pause time. I mean, we kind of pause time, but I think it's prettier when the water is still flowing and you're reading, because now we can have in the opening cinematic in the castle, when we run that, what we can do, oh gosh. Okay, insert animations. Oh, we do this the old method, the old way in the opening cinematic. So in the opening cinematic, we just need to turn off the insert animatables, because we're kind of doing it, how are we doing it here in the cinematic? Insert animations update. Okay, so yeah, we should be able to take this out because we're doing it anyway in the play state now. Oh, and you know what? This is outside the play state because this is in the, yeah, we would need to do this in the opening cinematic state as well. So that should be easy enough. I mean, it's just that. It's just this. Where we say we just need to update the animatables table from our play state. And we can actually do that. See? But we can't. Oh man, it's getting tough because our play state, if we change to our opening cinematic, which is also part of the state machine, then our play state only has reference to what the old scene and map that we were looking at is. So we kind of have to do, yeah, we have to do this in the opening cinematic state also. So where we're doing this, insert animations, right, in the opening cinematic. Yeah, so right here, we need to say, we're going to have a .animatables table for our cinematic. And we're going to insert animations from the map row that we assign in our cinematic. So when we change the map row, we change the scene map row and map column right here. Then we're going to be updating. See, and this is still the lazy way. So I want to figure out how to do it better because we're kind of reinstantiating insert animation class and putting it in the .animatables table every single frame and then updating it. I don't like that. We should only insert it when the table changes. So we'll see how to do that. But let's just see if this works for the opening cinematic. Okay, we have our animatables working, so that's a good sign. Nice. Oh, this is looking so good. Cool. Epic. That's exactly what we need. Okay, so how do we do this smarter? We need to change the .animatables table only if we change the scene. Yeah, only if we change the scene. So we still need to update the animatables because updating the animatables every frame is how we know what frame of water to render at what point. So we do have to do this. We do have to update this. So that's okay. But what we have to do is, instead of changing it 60 times a second, we initialize this new map right here. Then we need to say, okay, well now our .animatables will be an insert animation object based on the new current map row, current map call. Then we only need to reassign this table whenever we change scene, like for the castle step. So when we trigger the castle step, we're doing this. Here's our other map instantiation. So let's go into the opening cinematics animatables table and insert that animation here. And we'll do something very similar in the play state, but hopefully this works. If this works as if we didn't change anything, shoot. What crashed here? Oh, insert animations, update. No, let's see. What crashed? Method update on a 52. You don't like this animatables update. But, oh, we flush it here. Okay, yeah, we don't want to flush it. We want to say we have an animatables table. We change our new scene and then we overwrite this. We might get away with not requiring the empty table there, but this should work. Nice, we got the animatables. Cool. Okay, so we're close. Oh, this is great. This is really good. Yesterday was 3 straight hours of finding a one line mistake. Oh shit. Well, this is really cool. Okay, so we're not updating the animatables obviously upon a scene change. That's really cool though. Totally wrong, but cool. They were working during the dialogue box advancement, so that's good. That's nuts. It happened to be right in between us too. That's kind of nuts. Okay, so that tells me that our dot animations or our dot animatables is not being reassigned to the new scene view. So we have this scene view map row. We have a current map 7474. Wow, it really should be right. Yeah, something was it's getting a little heated in there for some reason. Self-animatables. See, this should work. Because if we were to say this is hard-coded in at 7.4, oh, you know what? We might, oh, it's, no. Okay, I don't know what's wrong. But I want to see if we put manual 7.4 in there, if it fixes it. If it doesn't, I have one more thing I want to try. Because we didn't explicitly remove the old animatable that was in there. Okay, still busted. So maybe what we need to do is flush our animatable. Oops. Okay, so we have the animatable. I'm curious if we need to declare it to an empty table or if we can just assign. See, I think I don't know. I think something tricky is happening with the assignment here because let's see. It should still be broke, but I'm hoping it doesn't crash when it changes here. Okay, so let's just try to flush this animatable table before we reassign it, because there's no reason it should have the old map and row, because we're explicitly saying the thing that's in the animatables table now is an insert animation of the new updated scene view's current map row and column, which should have no animatables. Please work. Shit. Okay, so something in the animatables is going wrong. We're updating these. Okay, so if, like, I'm curious, like, if we just don't insert an animation and just flush them here. Oh, this isn't even right. Enter or return. This is not the right spot. We need it upon a castle step. So yeah, we need this upon a castle step. So this is to... What is this even doing? Opening cinematic. If enter is pressed, we basically break out. Okay, so I'm not worried about that. That is the total wrong spot. When we update our scene view, after, we reinitialize a map, right here. We initialize a map on the fade to black. Now, once the fade to black is completed, we need to overwrite our animatable table with the new scene views animatables. So this should work. Okay, this should work. We're just looking for no lava in the castle once it changes here. Perfect. Okay, great. There's one thing that's still bugging me, and it's this slight overlap. See how this gray box here is coming into our HUD here, and I don't get why it's rendering. It's only renders weird in the cinematic right here. It renders perfect on every other dialog box, but it just doesn't render right there. Okay, before we forget, we need to do this smarter way of the animatable update for our play state instead of just our cinematic. So let's do that real quick. So here we're kind of just willy-nilly updating it. We need to dig down into our play states animatables table and update it upon a 2 times. Like we need to do it upon a scene transition finish, because that's when we instantiate our new map. And then we need to okay, that makes sense. And then we also need to set it upon when we initialize our map in the starting spot of our game, because our game has a starting point and it doesn't require a scene view transition, so therefore we wouldn't be putting in this animatable table. So we're gonna cut this. Actually, we're only gonna cut the insertion of the animatables table. We need the update regardless of being paused, because that's how our animatables animates. So we need that here. But anytime we do a scene view change, so like let's see in our play state, we initialize an initial scene view like right here. And the scene view should like makes the map and everything. So we should be able to we should have a dot animatables. Oh crap. We have to clean up how gross this is, but we've got the table here. So let's just say when we initialize this play state, we're initializing it from the current map row and column. That might work. Let's just see if we crash. We should see our animatables. Yes, they do. They still animate. Cool. So that means we have the animatable table populated correctly, and they're updating correctly and rendering. So that's big. So now we just need to, because look at this. If we walk off screen here, it should render the flowers on every scene. Yeah, which is not right. So we need to add it so that the animatables are now being updated upon a scene transition. So we do this upon a event trigger. We call it begin shifting, I think. No. Shifting, begin shifting. Okay, camel case, begin shifting. Okay, so where do we define this? Cool. We have a begin shifting. Now, when do we reinstantiate a new map? We do it upon the finish shifting? Yeah, we do right here. We say our current map is now our next map. So this is the point. Hey Loki, what's up? Good evening. This is the point where we need not the self-animatables, but we need to dig into our global state machine in our play state and go into the .animatables table. Oops, and put in an insert animation object using the new current map row. Now we're using the global scene, which we can change this to self.currentmap.row. We should be able to do that. Let's see. Okay, animating, and then did it really work? I think we did it. It looks like it's resetting. They're updating correctly. They're updating if we're reading, but we don't have player input, and the game state is not updating if we're reading. This is great. Yep, we got multi-page dialogue working. We'll pause it right here when the mage is walking and see that he doesn't update, but our water and our flowers are still animating, and we're able to advance the text. Now look at the text here. Yeah, see how it doesn't bleed into the bottom of the HUD there. So I think that's the last thing I want to try to track down today. And if we could find that today, it's going to be a huge success. That's big. Yeah, that's really nice. Okay. Sweet. Okay. Wow, this is huge. So the last thing I want to do is try to fix that rendering for the animatic, the opening cinematic dialogue box. So if we go into our opening cinematic, we can kind of speed up the test process here. And we can do that by initialing. We can say, you know what, let's skip all the mage steps and just go to the fade to black so that we can just see what the castle part of the scene is. Okay. See how it's rendering wrong. It's overlapping the HUD here. Now the text looks right and the text advance looks right. I think it's just the border box here that we're changing the color here. But then another thing I just want to check, because I saw the wrong flowers here in the opening cinematic, and I just want to make sure that wasn't broken still. I think it was wrong. Oh shoot. Yeah, we're pulling. Why did this happen all of a sudden? And they're not updating. Now what's weird is the lava's working, so the animatables is right. It's just that we're also rendering a bunch of animatables at the frame for some reason. Let's go to our play state. Let's go to where we update our animatables. Let's just turn this off for the play state and see if that fixes them in the, yeah, it fixes them here. So it doesn't like that when we update our state machines animatables. Okay, so this is okay. I think since our play state, well, we shouldn't render them. Let me see. We should flush our dot animatables table from our map in our opening cinematic. So we should, in the init here, we should be able to say, let's go to our state machine and animatables table and just flush it so we don't accidentally render something that's in the play state. I don't know if that'll work. So they're working here. Oop. Play state 359. Wow. Okay, so this is a little tricky because I didn't think that this would be updating, because play state is just one of our global state machines. So I thought if we were in an opening cinematic state machine that this wouldn't update or try to do this. We do flush the animatables there. Okay, so maybe we can say, well, see, no, I don't like this. I don't like that it crashes there, because we shouldn't be trying to update this, because I think it just doesn't like if it's nil. It's trying to update a nil value. So let's just say if the only thing that's in our animatables table only update if it's not nil, that might fix the crash, but I don't like that it would do that. Oh, we're not updating anymore. We're not updating in the scene anymore. If it does not equal nil, meaning we've got something, let's go update it. That's a little weird, because our animatables here are assigned from the init. Yeah, right here. So we have it. Oh, it's maybe not a table. I think if we put the brackets here, we can do the nil thing. No. We could table.insert. I think the issue is because we don't initialize it to be a table. Okay, so we're going to say table.insert into our animatables table the value of this class. Then we do, if it's not nil, go ahead and update it. And we, yeah, if there's no thing in there, okay, when we flush it, that should be nil. So this, oh, doesn't work still. Play state called update on a nil value in the play state. Well, why'd you call it? Because this shouldn't have been a value. You know, it's saying it's mad that it was nil, but I said only do this if it's not nil. So, like, don't update it. Animatables. I knew it wasn't going to be that easy, right? So let's do this same thing where we say it's almost like, yeah, it's almost like we need to kind of just like make sure that this is completely empty, and then we can table.insert into the animatables table the value of insert animation. Still doesn't like it. It doesn't like that we... Oh. Well. Okay. Let's try something else. I didn't think this would be an issue at all because of the state machine. So I'm a little confused why we're getting stuff confused there. Okay, so for right now, let's just say we update the animatables up here in the init. We aren't doing this anymore. We're just going to do the old method. And we'll see if we can figure this out. Why it's doing this. Okay, so the animations are working in the play state. That's cool. Opening cinematic. We say dot animatables. What, do we get rid of it? Okay, dot animatables gets that. Then when we update, yeah, we update our animatables. Oh, hold on a sec. Oh, hold on a sec. I think we're doing... I think something tricky is happening here with the state machine when we go to do this. Yeah, so in the scene here, we're saying we're going... I guess if we're not updating the scene... Shoot. Okay, so this is just in the finish shifting. Okay, I don't think this is wrong. I was thinking because multiple state machines have the same field of dot animatables, and different state names like play state or opening cinematic state. So like this state machine current could be modifying a different animatable table, but we're only triggering this upon a finish shifting and not a Y press here. So the fact that it is still crashing here is a little weird. Play state 359 cannot update a nil value. And this is right where we try to update it. Yeah. We say dot animatables, go ahead and update. So when we change into our opening cinematic, we need to not... Yo, Salto, what up, brother? How's it going? We're stuck on like this last bit, but we've got really good progress today. Okay, so we're not going to flush the animatable from our state machine. We're just going to reassign the opening cinematics animatables to be an insert animation class from our current scene. So the animation's working here. See, why is it carrying over into the cinematic? Yeah, so Salto, the what's really cool, well, so like yesterday it was 3 hours and there was literally a 1 character bug. I needed to change a 1 to a 0. Like no joke. I actually needed to change a 0 to a 1, and it fixed the issues we were having. So I did that, but then we did remodel around some of the dialog box logic. So today has been modifying all the old stuff to work with the new solution. But yeah, it was literally off by 1 error. But we found it. Took us 3 hours. We found it. Today we added, oopsie, that's broken. Today we added where you could be reading a sign and the pausing is working now, so our player doesn't move when you try to walk around, but the flowers and stuff are still animating. So the stuff here is updating, but the scene and the NPCs and the enemies aren't being updated. So that's right. We just cannot figure out why the animatables are broken when we switch into the state machine. So if we look in the scene and we go to our it's a dot animatables. Right here. Okay. So this is in our scene, and we say, okay, this is just in our finish shifting. We got to be doing this in our play state, so let's do that one. Okay, right here. So this is the line that's responsible for breaking it in the cinematic, and I don't get that. Because right there, it's fine. They don't update, or they don't animate, but look, they're not animating here in this scene either, but they're not being carried over here. So it's really strange why we have this. And if we flush, yeah, this is really weird. It's our play state is part of our global state machine. So it's like when we go to change our state machine to be play state, it's changing it away from the opening cinematic state, right? Because when we define this play state, we define a play state here, and there's also an opening cinematic state. So one thing we aren't doing, well, yeah, we're not even ending our opening cinematic state by changing us back to play state, resetting our scene. But that's not the issue here. We're just like, what's really weird is like we change to the opening cinematic, which the state machine is supposed to, since it's returning this state instead of play state, we're doing completely other stuff. In our opening cinematic state, we're doing stuff like, let's update the characters' positions, let's get the scene we're looking at, let's render the scene we're looking at, let's update those animatables. But what's weird is once we change the opening cinematic, if we flush our .animatables table from our play state, it crashes because it's trying to update a nil value. And I don't get why it's updating an animatable table in a play state when we have changed to an opening cinematic state. Yo, Barty. I am doing well. How are you doing? Welcome in. Bardiel Roku. Yeah, so if we, like I said, we turn this off, it works perfect in the opening cinematic. See how they're working. Those animatables are working, but that breaks the animatables in our play state. Yo, I don't get why my toolbar box is just lingering. Go away. Okay. So we need to update this animatables table, but we also, yeah, we need to update this so it works. Oh, is that Peglin? Are you talking about Peglin, that pinball game? I love that game. I love that game. Animatables update. Okay. Yeah, what's really weird to me is that once we press P in our play state or in our scene, we are changing to, like, we do a change to a opening cinematic. And when we do that, look, in our play state update, the first thing we're doing is we're saying, if we press Y, we change into the opening cinematic. So once we change to this, we're flushing that animatable table from our play state, but then it's still going down past this update function into where we're updating the animatables on line 359 here. Okay, do they mess around with like the density of pixels? I'm trying to remember if that bothered me or what it was, because it is pixel art, but are you saying like they had different sized pixels or something that just didn't look great? I do really like that game. I have fun with that game. I mean, we could do something ghetto, like say if our current state machine has a dot name that is opening cinematic, don't update the animatable table in the play state. But I don't know if I want to do that ghetto of a thing. I thought this would work. You know, we shouldn't be updating the animatables in the play state while we're in the opening cinematic state. I don't get why that would happen. Let's see if my ghetto fix would change anything. So like in this state machine, we have a state name, and the name is opening cinematic. So if we initialize this state machine with a state name like that, we can say, well, if the, I mean, this is a little weird, but let's just see if this works. If the state machine that we're currently in has a state name that does not equal opening cinematic, then sure, go ahead and update your animatables in the play state. See, and I don't get why that would even Why would it would update in the opening cinematic? They're working here. It does work. What the... Okay, let's make sure it doesn't carry over to the castle. Now, this just changes how I understand how the state machine's working, and I'm not sure... Like, it makes me more confused about how the state machine was working, which I'm not so thrilled about. And our render is a little off for the dialogue box in the cinematic. So let's change this. Let's make this make a little more sense. And in the init for the play state, oh, see, look at us. We do have a state name. So we'll say only update the animatables if we are in a play state or our current state machine. And then update the only update the animatables for the play state if we're in the play state, which I thought was the whole point of the state machine. So I'm a little confused about that. Okay. But then we need to, and we don't have this yet, but it's like when we trigger from our cinematic back into our play state, we need to make sure that our .animatables in our play state gets the updated map animatables for whatever scene we end up dumping Tashio in. So let's see if we can find where this is rendering incorrectly, why this is rendering off, because this is like, I don't get why this would render wrong here. I'm kind of curious if we try to render it before we go into the castle step, if it's still busted, because I'm thinking like maybe the scene transition or the fade to black changed to some, well, I don't know what it could be. It's off by like 1 pixel. So if we look in our dialog box object, this is where we're rendering the dialog box, and we're saying it's right here. This is the dialog box. So we set a color to perfectly opaque. We hard coded at 0 and 0 on the X. Y with a screen height limit -40, so that's the bottom of our virtual screen, but up 40 pixels, so it's a 40 tall box. So we set the color for the text, and then we fill, and actually this is like a ghetto kind of drop drop shadow that we're doing. You want to do something that is a Bomberman and Mega Man feature. What are you talking about? You want to do that for your game or what? Bomberman and Mega Man feature. What feature? Okay, so yeah, let's just like, if we take this apart and try to just draw it at the very top of the screen, we'll see if it's off in the opening cinematic, and we'll see, like, let's just say we'll draw it at a 0, 0, very top left of the screen. Oopsie. Yeah, this is the weird, we offset it, so this is the real one. Okay, so what we'll do, we'll just draw this one at 0, 0. We won't draw the other one because that's the black drop shadow, but we'll just draw the gray color, width and height of a virtual width and 40, set it color to black. Let's see. It should be normal here, which if we, yeah, so it's at the top left there. It looks perfectly fine. We did render the wrong one, or delete the wrong one. But let's see if in the opening cinematic, it's offset on the X there for some reason, because I don't know why that value would change. It's hard-coded to a constant value. So once the dialog box triggers here, we'll see if it's offset. Since it's black, it's hard to see if it's off. Yeah, let's do that. That should be the brighter one. Yeah, okay. Okay, no, yeah, it looks fine there. It looks fine there, so what is going on? It looks perfectly flush there. Yet, and if we go to our opening cinematic, we don't have to wait through all that. We can just set our step right here. We can say we're not in step 1, we're in a fade to black getting true. That should speed it up. Okay. So we're looking for the text box overlay. See, why is this off? So we're doing this little drop shadow thing, which see, there's like a black outline, right? And the text box is kind of like shifted down and to the right. If we look at how we do it on this one, yeah, so it's like the black text box is right, but the gray text box was down 1 pixel for some reason. Or yeah, it looks like we have 1 pixel. We did like a poor man drop shadow where we drew a black rectangle and then we go to draw a gray rectangle, but instead of drawing it exactly over the top, we do down 1 and right 1. So that's what this kind of ghetto drop shadow is, but we're dropping by 1 too many values in the opening cinematic for some reason. Let's see it again. Yeah, it looks wrong. So like it is down and to the right by 1 pixel, but the height is 1 pixel too high in the opening cinematic, but we don't change the height of the virtual height. What do we might change? Well, the only thing that's different is that we're kind of doing a fade to black, but why would this is just the black. Like, I'm kind of curious if we put our dialog box before the fade to black, if it would still be incorrect. So maybe we see that, because all this is rendering the dialog box, which is rendering the same thing regardless of if we're in the play state or in the cinematic. And it's a virtual width of 40 and a screen height of 40. Oh, actually, hold on. That looks... Yeah, this does look wrong, actually, because I'm thinking the 0x offset, that's the black color, because this is a very dark color. And it's a 40 high, and we're drawing it with a y of negative 40. But then when we go to draw the other one, we do an x offset of 1. We should also have a width offset of 1. No. It should be the... Well, yeah, to get to the end of the screen, yeah. And then a y starting position of 40. Yeah, so this should be 39. So let's see if that looks more proper. That looks right. Now, if we play the cinematic, it should be... That looks right. Okay. That's right. I don't get why it wasn't jacked up in the play state, but we fixed it. Okay, cool. So we have an updated dialogue system now that works for our opening cinematics. It also is more flexible with the meditation dialogue and signpost dialogue because we're not doing a secondary step of like copying it over into a dialogue collided table and then only updating and rendering that table. Instead, what we're doing is we're snagging an active dialog box ID and we're updating only the active dialog box ID and rendering the active dialog box ID over time. So now that active dialog box ID is required when we instantiate a dialog box, but it also kind of protects us from accidentally rendering a dialog box that might not exist or might be the wrong one. We kind of have more control over that. So that's kind of what the new system's looking like. So tomorrow we'll continue scripting the opening expositional dialogue now that our dialogue system's working in our cinematic state. And then we'll continue making progress. So that'll be it. So today we update animatables outside of the scene, which is cool. So now when we're reading a signpost, we can see the animations and still pause our scene, which is nice. And then we also, I want to say we just did that because the other thing was a tiny bug fix, but we're going to git commit. I should have checked our git diff here because we changed a lot of files. I don't feel like we really touched that many files, but I guess we did. So we will git push and I'll run the credits here and we'll find someone to raid out to. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll run the credits. Oh, our credits doesn't work in the opening cinematic state. We got to run it here. So thanks for watching. I'll be back tomorrow and we'll get some. I'm hoping we can finalize the dialogue for the opening cinematic and have have Mage walk back upstairs and then have Tashio walk outside and then actually start our game and give control back to the player once he walks outside of Mage's castle. Let's see. Jitspo, Aria, Adagon Dev. Adagon Dev's doing a 24-hour Brackies jam. So we'll raid out here to Adagon Dev and call it a night. So thanks for watching. I hope everyone has a great night. I appreciate you hanging, keeping me company, and I'll catch you later.